So now I'd like to introduce Barb Allen. She's our keynote for the summit, and she is the founder of Construction Barb, as well as the 14% box. So I will let Barb take it from here and give a full intro of herself. And so thank you for being with us, Barb.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invite, ladies. At the beginning, there was a little technical difficulty, and I will say we had huge storms here in Kansas City. So I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and we had huge storms last night. So if there is some in and out, I apologize ahead of time, but somebody flagged me down if you're noticing it, and I am not. So I am very excited to be keynoting the summit next month. I can't wait to be down there for it. And during the summit, the talk that you're going to hear is called One Ladder to Leadership. And that talk is based off of my book that was published earlier this year. And I want to make sure that today I didn't reiterate what we're going to talk about then. I wanted to go a different direction today, which all of my work really ties together with related to retention, recruitment, and advancement in the construction industry. And so today I really want to focus on recruitment. And so what you guys are getting to see today is one of the first that is seeing the new keynote that I have created. And I have put it in more of a TED Talk for you guys here today to get a feel for Rethink Obvious, which is what we're going to talk about today related to recruitment. So are we ready?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So what I want to do, let me turn this real quick.
And I'll just interject quickly. Every attendee at the summit will get a copy of Barb's book.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so what I want to do is I want you to start out with me as if, whoops, hold on, where is it going? Is it changing? It's not changing.
No.
Please hold. Now did it change?
Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
Okay, okay. I want you to go on a walk with me through the halls of what could be a local high school, wherever local is for you. And what I want you to do is look through this first door. And when we open the first door, it's a room full of orchestra students. And as you're looking at these students, I want you to find yourself looking at them and thinking, which of these kids do you want to talk to about construction? Just think about that to yourself. Maybe take a little notes, because I'm going to ask you, after we go through a few of these photos, I'm going to ask you to tell me what are the thoughts and feelings that you had related to the questions and the pictures that you saw. So as you're looking at these orchestra students, which ones do you feel like you really want to have a conversation about construction with? Okay, so now let's go back into the hall and let's walk out the building into the next building where we're going to peek in on the shop class. As we're looking at the shop class, which roles in the industry do you want to talk to these kids about? Which roles do you think they would love to learn more about? Which ones do you want to make sure they have the information and the contacts that they need to get really involved in the industry in the way that you think that they may want to get involved in the industry? All right, walking out of that classroom, down to this hall, and you see the window. If we peek in this window, we see a choir. My question for you on the choir is, which of these kids can you see making a real impact in the construction industry? Which of these kids? And so as we step away from the window and we walk back down the hall, I want you to think about that. As you thought about each of these classrooms that you peeked into, all of these different kids that you saw, what were the thoughts that came to mind about the questions that I asked you and the pictures that you saw? Who's willing to share? Anyone? Anyone?
I'll go. If no one else wants to. I'm gonna be honest too. The kids in the music classroom playing instruments, I wouldn't even approach them, to be honest with you. But then when I saw the choir kids, I felt like I would approach all of them. So it's weird that I had that prejudice. I can't figure that out.
Yeah, I love that. And it's not wrong.
Mhm.
And it's not that it should make, I wouldn't want anyone to feel bad about feeling a certain way.
Mhm.
It's just a way of looking differently. So I appreciate you sharing. What else? What does somebody else feel or think when you saw the pictures or heard the questions?
Okay, well, I'll go. Um, for the orchestra kids, I thought of the one who plays piano because in piano, you need to know basically so much. You need to know your right hand, your left hand, your feet are involved, the whole thing. And for the shop, I thought I'm almost sure that they're still doing woodworking. And then for the choir kids, I thought all of them, basically.
Okay, I love this. And what I wanted us to really to think about was how often we find ourselves looking for what appears to be obvious. Who are the
Mhm.
obvious people that we would want in the industry? Who are the obvious people who would want to join the industry?
The
What we
shop kids.
do, what's that, Christina?
The shop kids.
Right? It
Yeah.
seems like
Yeah.
the shop kids are the first place for us to look.
Hmm.
And the people that we think would be interested in the industry, the people that we think would be a good fit for a particular role or a particular area of the industry, the people that appear obvious appear that way due to pattern recognition. It's through our
Mhm.
own lived experiences, the people that we've seen in these roles and the rooms that we have successfully recruited from. Think about the different rooms you've stepped into to recruit from, whether they're career fairs like the one here, whether they're just going to classrooms at high schools to do recruiting. We do this based on pattern recognition. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying they tend to be obvious choices. The
Mhm.
kids in shop class have already grown, have already shown that they're interested in working with their hands. The ones who walk up to us at these particular career fairs, they're the ones that are already showing an interest and feel a level of comfort to step up to a booth that shows construction. There's also the ones whose parents may already be in the industry, and so they see a path for them in construction. They see it being modeled for them, so it may be obvious to them as well. And although recognizing the obvious can make recruiting some of these people easier, it can also be limiting to us. And too often, our experience shapes these obvious opinions in ways that we end up stating them as facts. Facts that sound like, oh, she wouldn't be interested in construction, or he wouldn't want to do this job, or those honor roll students, it would be really hard to get them interested into construction. And those things feel obvious to us. But today, what I want you to encourage you to do is to rethink obvious. Because we're first just going to label them as obvious. But I want you to then rethink obvious. Because our industry, we have a recruitment problem. The ABC chief economist for ABC earlier this year, in January of this year, he said that in 2026, we need 349,000 new workers in our industry. 349,000 new workers. And that rises to 456,000 in 2027. Sure, some of that is because there's new work coming, but most of it is because people are retiring. 41% of our people are scheduled or anticipated to retire by 2031. 2031. 41%. That's a lot of people. But because our industry has largely continued to focus on the same narrow group of people, which tends to be, we recruit young men who don't appear to be college bound, who are familiar with the industry, and who tend to look the part. I don't mean that bad. It's just what we have tended to recruit. And there was a study done earlier this year, maybe end of last year, in Las Vegas in particular, that found only 3% of young adults are showing interest in our industry. 3%. We're losing 41%. We need over 450,000 people next year, and only 3% of young people are considering the industry, show any interest at all. So how do we close that gap? Now, granted, kids in high school aren't going to close our gap necessarily for 26 or 27. But if we had started to do this work 10 years ago, that gap would already start to be closing. But we are such an industry that is steeped in tradition and how we've always done it and who fits the roles, that we have choked ourselves down to such a small talent pool of people even being interested in the industry. So how do we change that? How do we close this gap? And my answer is what I call the opinion reflex. The goal here on an opinion reflex is to recognize when opinion has been stated as a fact and then rethink what could be true instead. So for example, how many times do we hear people like these stats, the numbers themselves may have been new to you, but in general, the fact that we're facing a workforce shortage is not new information, right? Mm-hmm. How many times do we hear people say, there just aren't enough people out there, or nobody wants to do this kind of work anymore, or we've already tried recruiting from there. The trades will never compete with a 4-year degree, or there's nothing more we can do. We're going to have to find another way. The opinion reflex is all about taking the first 2 letters and asking a question. Or every time someone states an opinion, whether it's yourself, maybe you're thinking it, maybe you're stating it to your teams, maybe you're hearing it in a meeting, at a conference, on the street, and on a job site. When someone states that fact, she wouldn't want to do this job. The opinion reflex makes us want to say, or would she? Because they may be right. Maybe she doesn't want to do the job. Or is there another reason she's never considered doing that job? Or maybe he wouldn't want to work in construction. And the opinion reflex is, or maybe he would, and he just doesn't know about it yet. Or he hasn't learned this side of the industry, or he doesn't know what all the different opportunities are that even exist for him in the industry. One of my favorite, as I have now crossed over the 50-year mark, is they're too old to start something new, right? The opinion reflex, once again, is, or are they? Because how many of these positions that need filled do we need someone who has just life experience? Because we can teach people skills, but there are certain life experiences that are gained from time. So then that pushes the next question out there, or the statement, they don't have the right experience. And the opinion reflex is, or do they have exactly the experience we need, and we can teach them the rest? Because, for example, one of the things that I'll talk about in One Ladder to Leadership is what I call the sticky rung. And in the sticky rung, I talk about how confidence is so mislabeled in our industry. We look at confidence in a certain way. We judge confidence in a certain way. The way someone talks, the way they act, the way they raise their question first, the way they go out and do something. But what gets misjudged are the three things that are missing with confidence: humility, curiosity, and collaboration. And when somebody shows those traits, those aren't traits that you can teach someone. Those are traits that someone has inherently and they grow within themselves. We can teach them project management. We can teach them estimating. We can teach them carpentry skills. We can teach them to do their job. But when someone says they don't have the right experience, so we don't bring them into the industry, that's one less person that could be filling these gaps because we didn't say, or do they? Do they have exactly what we need to lead these teams? We just have to teach them the work itself. The opinion reflex is what is so important for us to change who's getting recruited to the industry, because it's a blind bias. I don't think it's intentional. I don't think, for the most part, that it's intentional that we're leaving people out and that we've created a gap. It's that we just haven't rethought what appears to be obvious to us. So I'm going to tell you my story. So I am a woman who was born to a mom who was a high school teacher and a dad who was a sheet metal worker. And when I was in kindergarten, my dad started his own business. He started a residential HVAC company. As a kid, I was a kid who played piano. I played violin, not saying I played it well. I played piano, I played violin, I played tennis. And after church on Sundays, I walked jobs with my dad, because that's when he would go check on jobs and see if they were ready for his crew the next week or if his crew had finished that week. When I was in high school, I was an honor student. I sang in the concert choir. I auditioned for and then sang in the madrigal choir that was a traveling choir. I directed the school play. And at the same time, I worked in a hardware store lumberyard as a cashier. Why? Because my two best girlfriends landed a job at what used to be called Payless Cashways, and I wanted to work with them. I went in for an interview, and they hired me at a completely different store than my friends. And yet I worked there all through high school and never once thought about construction. I think in my mind at that time, construction was a job, and I was raised to believe that I was going to have a career. But I continued to work there through high school and through college. And my sophomore year of college, when I went to college initially, I didn't know what I wanted to study. And I started out in business management. I quickly realized that wasn't what I wanted to do, and I shifted. I was going to be a high school math teacher. So I went into secondary education until I took like Calc 3 and got my first D ever. And I was like, okay, this isn't for me. And I very vividly remember my sophomore year was coming to a close. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, leaning against my bed, terrified to call my mom and tell her that I was planning to drop out of college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was wasting money. And because I was terrified of my mother and telling her that, I took the course book. The college course book, yes, it used to actually be an actual course book with pages that you flip through. I sat on the floor, leaning against the bed, going through the course book one more time. And as I went through that course book, that third time, that's when I saw it. Construction management. As soon as I read it, I knew that was exactly what I was supposed to do. I'm reading the syllabus and it included steel structures, concrete structures, wood structures, materials testing, and all of it, I just kept going, yes, 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 yes. I want to learn all of that. I didn't realize that everything that had been going up to that point in my life had been leading me right to this. No one had ever discouraged me from entering the construction industry. No one had just ever encouraged me to enter it either. It was an industry that was hiding in plain sight for me. I walked jobs as a kid almost every week. I worked in a hardware store, a lumber yard, as a cashier, as inventory control at the service desk. I sold doors, I sold windows, I sold, you name it, I worked it in that store for 6 years and never once thought, oh, this might be a place that I want to be. I was raised in the industry, and yet it was hiding in plain sight. As soon as I read it, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I called the dean of that college. I set up an appointment, and my junior year, I started in that program. I was the only woman in the program the entire time that I was there. And when I was there, I knew I wanted to be a commercial job site superintendent. I don't, to this day, remember why I knew that, or I definitely never seen anyone do it, but there was somehow it had gotten into my purview, and that's what I wanted to do. And so for me, I was very fortunate. I was hired by a now nationwide general contractor. I was the first woman they'd ever hired out of college to train to become a job site superintendent. And because they were signatory with the Carpenters Union, they placed me into the Carpenter's Apprenticeship Program, and I learned to physically build buildings while I learned how to manage in that industry. I was a union carpenter for over a decade. And in that time, I worked my way up to carpenter foreman, assistant superintendent, and superintendent. I spent most of my career as a commercial job site superintendent. I spent 20 years in the field on job sites, 20 years using porta-johns more than I used indoor plumbing. That was my life. And after 20 years, I decided to move into the office. I moved into positions that included project executive, operations director, and my last position in the built environment was as managing director. I managed a third of our company's business. 30 years I spent in this industry. And I said earlier that it may have been hiding in plain sight for me, but I also believe I was hiding in plain sight to the industry. And I think there are a lot of people that are hiding in plain sight. That girl in the orchestra, she was going to become a carpenter. The girl in the choir would find a passion for concrete formwork. The girl playing tennis would spend 2 decades wearing jeans and work boots every single day. Obvious isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. The next superintendent, the next estimator, the next great tradesperson, they're also hiding in plain sight. This number of people that we need to find, that we need to entice, it's not that they're not out there. They're looking at other industries because they haven't seen themselves in ours. So when someone says she wouldn't want to do this, he wouldn't want to do this, all it takes is that one question. Or would she? Or would he? Or would we? That's how we rethink the obvious. And so what I'd like to do is talk about what it is from a recruiting standpoint, ways that we can do recruiting different. I'm curious what you guys in your organizations have heard, have seen, have participated in, that you've heard the same things. This isn't working. I don't know where else to go. Where else can we find these people? Or what are the things that are working for you guys? What have you done that is stepping outside of that box, that is rethinking the obvious way to recruit that will start to fill these gaps? Does anyone have someplace you want to start?
Laura or Miriam, please feel free to jump in here.
Hello, this is Miriam.
Hi,
Hey,
Miriam.
Barb, it's nice to see you again.
Good to
I
hear your
turned on-
voice.
Yes, I turned on my camera, but I am working and
No
I
worries.
can't share my screen right now.
That's okay.
But I am looking forward to seeing everybody at the conference next month. I'll be there on Thursday. I'm also a member of Project Management Institute, PMI. And at the project management conferences, I have all sorts of people that are predominantly in IT related fields that are seriously considering moving to construction because it's seen as more stable.
Oh, that's
A
interesting.
field, yes. So I have lots of people, men and women, that talk to me about construction and opportunities as project managers in construction, and what they can do to learn the construction industry.
Well, what I love about the more stability is that one of those opinion statements that I hear a lot, particularly when working with the trades, is it lacks stability. They may love the income that comes with it, but people feel that construction lacks stability because it's up and it's down and it's up and it's down. But right there, Miriam, what you did is you said, or is there more stability in it than we are projecting? We have been projecting a type of instability, and maybe a refocus on the stability of our industry is actually one of the shifts that we need to make to recruit more of those people. Thank you, Miriam.
Yes, and it really is also geographic location, because especially here in Florida, we're definitely booming. So we don't, and we have warmer weather than say Kansas. So so it's more of a year round, and it's very stable even for tradespeople.
Yeah, that's true. Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. I am Laura Garza. I noticed with my Teams app, my name is not showing, so I apologize today. And I'm just returning from a work trip, so I don't want you to get car sick. That's why my camera's not on. But Barb, I don't have much to do with recruitment in our company because I'm in a sales role. But I will say that your story 100% absolutely resonated with me. I went through the same experience in college, really trying to figure out what my major was going to be and where I was going to go, and ended up being a Red Lobster manager right out of school because they were recruiting at our job fair and they paid more than anybody else at the table. So I did do that for a stint of a few years right out of college, and soon figured out that it was weekends, nights, and holidays, and I had no balance to my life but work. So that's when I saw the ad in the paper for ODL and really thought I'm going to turn myself upside down. And I'll tell you guys, it took them a year to interview me and hire me because back then, so this is I'm going to date myself, 27 years ago, but I was one of the first female team leaders to be on their production floor, and they were really scared to bring in a female. So it's been a very interesting transition for me. And anytime I see women in the field now, I just am a huge fan, huge supporter. It's just nice because I've always felt like it's been kind of a boys' club for a long, long time. And it's just nice to see, other women in the field and meet other women that are out there. So thank you for your speech today. It was really enlightening, and it touched a lot of parts of me. But as far as recruitment, I do know our company has done some interesting things with the high schools, and they've actually brought them into our plants and given them tours, and tried to get a hold of that senior class, because there's a lot of seniors that sometimes get lost, and college is not really for them. And to your point of looking at the kids in orchestra, and that hit home with me because I have a daughter who's been in band forever, but one of her most favorite things was to do set building for the school play. And that all just really resonates. But yeah, I think our company has really tried to focus on that upcoming senior class at high schools in the local area, and actually brought them into the plant, given them tours, and talked to them that way. So, and again, we're attending college fairs too. That's always a big one. But those are
Yeah.
the two things that come to mind for me.
Thanks for sharing, Laura. Christina had something to add. Since you're driving, you probably couldn't see her. So Christina, go ahead.
Laura, we share something in common because I started my career out as a Red Lobster general manager, opening teams.
No way.
Oh yeah, I went up the ranks there, started as a dining room manager and jumped
No
to
way.
GM. Yeah. And look at my glory
Where
now.
right. What area were you in, Christina? Just out of
I
curiosity.
I was in the Northeast. I opened like 5 or 6 restaurants between Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Oh man, that is
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in the Michigan area, and was on the opening team for a very small one called in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I
Okay, yeah.
actually got to open that store, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was the probably some of the best experience I had, because General Mills at that time was so strict about their testing, and who was in the
Yes.
management roles, and it taught me a lot about leadership. It really did.
Yeah.
So it
And
was
it
a
wasn't
great experience.
it was. I was there a little bit earlier than you. I started in 19 something. Um and it was a good old boys club, I will tell you that, where I was.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
interesting.
and more women were starting to climb the ladder then in restaurants. But yeah, it was a real awakening to the real world for me.
Well, you guys bring
Um,
up two points that I'd like to touch on. So one being restaurants. I think restaurants are a huge place that we are missing the boat, restaurants and bars, on recruiting for this industry. People that are working in restaurants typically like to be on their feet. They like to interact with people. They like to task switch, doing this and that. I mean, it's serving tables is not the same serving tables from table to table, right? There is something about what they do that is can very much resonate in the construction industry. And I think that we don't reach out to the people in that industry enough to show them that, hey, there are opportunities here. And yes, on a Saturday night at a bar, you may make a lot of money in tips, right? But this is steady income on the construction industry. And man, what kids are, whether you go to college or you go into the trades, the money in this industry is very good. So I think restaurants is somewhere that we're absolutely missing the boat on recruiting from. The other thing I want to tag on to what Laura said was, Laura, you not being officially in a recruitment role. And I want to tell you a story. So ever since I stopped actually building and I started my speaking business full time, it took me about a year and a half, and I started to realize how much I missed being in the field. I missed the camaraderie. I missed working with my hands. I missed the type of problem solving that happens. And so I joined a helping hands group at my church that volunteers once a month, and we go do construction projects different places. And there was a day 3 months ago, I think now, where I was placed onto, well, you know what? Let me just back up and tell you, it took me several introductions before they invited me to be on the team. I think they struggled to understand what I actually could bring as a value to the team. And now, as soon as I show up, they're like, oh, glad you're here. I have a project that you're going to lead over here. But that just initially, oh, she works in, oh, okay, right? But a few months ago, I was on a project and they asked me to go build a fence around an air conditioning unit for this nonprofit agency. And I had noticed this young girl who was just kind of wandering around with her mom, her mom was one of the people in charge, and she was paying attention, but she kind of looked like she wanted something to do. And eventually they had her opening paint cans. And so when I started the fence building, I said, is there somebody else? Like, would you maybe go see if that young girl would like to come help me? And I did not know her. She did not know me. And she came out and she was very timid. She was shy, just like I was at that age. And I spent the next 4 hours showing her the tools. I taught her how to use them. I taught her how to drill the pilot hole, how to switch the bit from the drill bit to the apex, and which screw to use for what. And she was doing it on her own, cutting with the miter saw, understanding how to use it. And one of the guys came out and he said he knew her, and he said, oh, I see your dad has taught you a few things. And she said, no, I learned all of this today. And she was so proud of herself with what she'd done. And she is in high school and she's a cheerleader. She is an honor student and a cheerleader that no one has ever taken the time to show her or introduce her to the industry. And you guys are going to love what I'm about to tell you. At the end of the day, we got done with the fence panel. We were building fence panels on the ground. And I said, you want to stand this up and take a picture, so you have a picture of you with it? And she says, and I quote, you mean like guys do with fish? And I said, yes, exactly. And she stood it up and she was so proud. She had her drill and she was holding the fence and she was so proud of herself. But going back to Laura's comment about recruitment, we may not be in the actual role of recruitment with our company, but we all have so many opportunities to introduce a young woman, a young person to this industry that just hasn't been introduced to it. And I think there are so many kids, there are so many adults who would love, like at one point, her mom came out and said, I wish I had worked here with you today so I would learn how to use it. People are so afraid or they're intimidated to learn how to use the tools. They're intimidated when they walk by a construction site because they don't have someone that they know in their world that is connected to our world. And so that's where each of us, each single person plays a role in recruiting in this industry.
Definitely. That's awesome. I love that. That was so funny, the fish comment.
I have not heard anything funnier since. Like she was just like guys do with fish. I'm like, yes, exactly.
That is a great story, Barb. That is a really good one.
If no one has something else, I have one more story to share, but I am open to you guys having other thoughts and comments. Would love to hear them.
No, go
I
right
just
ahead.
think-
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in because I'm not in construction. I'm more in a vertical because I'm in media and publishing for construction and development. But I was just absorbing your presentation about who you would choose from each of these rooms. And I understood like what Christina said on such a high level of I wouldn't choose somebody in the orchestra room, or I wouldn't, or I was intrigued by the people in the choir room. And for me, thinking of that and digesting it and thinking what I would do in that situation for recruiting anyone, I was thinking more of, what do these, if I knew all these children, like if I was the teacher of all these children, what would I recognize in their core traits inside that would make them a good fit for the construction industry? Not necessarily on the superficial level of like, what instrument do they play? Can that guy holding the cello, because he can lift a heavy cello as opposed to somebody holding a clarinet, is he a better fit? More, can the person playing the clarinet write music? And does she have that analytical mathematical brain that comes with writing music that would make her a good fit to be an architectural engineer? More on that level. And then someone in the, in the shop, for me, in my experience, shop was mandatory. So I wouldn't necessarily go looking for somebody in shop thinking just because they're in shop, they're going to be a good fit for the trades. I would more think, does that person in shop have, who's the one kid that's building like, I don't know, crazy bookshelves in his off time in the shop, as opposed to somebody just using the templates in shop to just get the grade, right? Like it's all about, I think, when it comes to recruiting, and in my experience of doing that, because I do that a lot for my job, is we often hire people or avoid hiring people that are too young and too old, because if they're too old, we feel like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and you also can't guarantee that they're going to be with you for a long time because they might not want to be working for a long time. And then the younger people are too green. They don't know enough about what you want. You want somebody kind of in that mid-level that knows enough, but can then be taught more. And so I think what's important though is understanding the traits of getting to know somebody, of outside of their resume and what they do, how are they personally on a deeper level, and can they be taught? And if in my opinion, the greener, the better, because then they're malleable. Then they're malleable. So why not be super green, fresh out of school? Like, no, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I had no idea that this was going to be my position fresh out of high school. And I don't think many people know what they want to do in their life until they reach their 30s, really. We're kind of just all flying by the seat of our pants. And then we find our purpose somewhere in our 30s and we're like, okay, this is what I want to do, right? So I think I loved your presentation, and I think it's so important because it fits so much of all of the industries and not just construction, because we judge based off of things that we shouldn't be judging off of realistically, and we've been kind of like taught and programmed that way, as opposed to taking a step back and looking a little bit deeper into who these people are genuinely. Do they have drive? Are they motivated? Do they have general interest in whatever it is? Are they artistic? Because in construction is, while it's mathematical and scientific, it's also very artistic. Like it's very artistic. Like you have to be creative to build anything. You have to have a drive and a passion that comes with being artistic to be in construction. So that's my TED Talk. And I just think I loved what you said, and I think it resonates with a lot of us here today. And I personally took away a lot from it as well.
Thank you. I love your comments. It's interesting to me, and this was from different perspectives, that shop was required for you. That is absolutely not my case. My options were orchestra, home ec, or shop. And I was intimidated by shop, and I had no desire to be anywhere where it was women's work and home ec, and orchestra is where I ended up. But you have a great question about how do you get to know them and figure out where they would fit. And my answer to that is actually more about, it's important to introduce them to the industry and let them start to figure out, is there something here that I like? And then figure out where they fit. Because I think there are so few people that would not fit at all in this industry, but there are so many different opportunities and what skill sets people need to be able to do the opportunities. But I think one of the things we're missing from a recruitment standpoint today is high school counselors understanding what this industry offers. Because too many high school counselors see construction as an opportunity for someone who isn't college bound. And sure, that can be a great opportunity for them, but it's also a great opportunity for students who are college bound. And it's a perfect lead in, actually, thank you very much, to the story that I was going to tell. So there's a young woman, her name is Taylor, and Taylor, as a senior in high school, she ended up in shop class as a junior and senior, and she wanted to become a carpenter. And she had her meeting with her school counselor, and the school counselor did not know where to send her, what to tell her, basically told her she needed to Google. And she Googled and she found me. And this was 2016. She came across me on a website as the president of the local NAWIC chapter, and she called me up and she's like, hey, I want to be a carpenter. I'm struggling to find out about it. Can you help me? And I said, please come shadow me for a day. Right. And this is something Laura can do, especially, right? Like you meeting so many people, having someone shadow you for a day and have the opportunity just to talk to them about, yes, you can absolutely be a carpenter and here are paths to do it. But while I have you, let me tell you what the other opportunities are. But what's also interesting about the Taylor story is that she was in shop class where probably, I'm guessing, many of the guys were already being told where to go to do what they wanted to do next. She still went to her school counselor, and the school counselor didn't know. When she found me and we went through this whole day, her dad picked her up at the end of the day. And it was very clear to me, her parents were not interested in her working in construction. And so it's not just that her family wasn't in it, so they weren't comfortable with it, so they didn't know it, and that her school didn't. It was a combination of both. And a young girl saying, I see something, but I don't know how to get there, and these barriers are popping up all over the place. And so I spent time with her dad, helping him understand, and I literally call her my mini me. She is literally the mini me. And he's like, I just don't see how she can be successful. And I'm like, well, here's my story. And then a few weeks later, I invited her and her mom to come to a NAWIC meeting, and her mom was surrounded by women in the construction industry who do so many different types of work. And they started to get more comfortable. And the next thing you know, Taylor is in college chasing her construction management degree. And 4 years later, I get an invite to her college graduation where her parents had carpenter pencils made with her name engraved and her year of graduation. And Taylor is now a superintendent for a general contractor here in Kansas City. But the barriers that she had to overcome, not just from not knowing, she knew about the industry and still struggled to get in. And it's not just women though. Many of my stories are related to women and the struggles because that's who I tend to hear the stories from or have experienced myself. But it is so many other people that struggle because someone doesn't see that, oh, they might actually really love this job. That's my story.
Wow. That's powerful, honestly. Wow, that's a good one. Well, I don't know about you ladies, but I am very excited for next month and to see Barb in person and all the rest of you gals. So I want to thank Barb very much for giving us this kind of sampling of her presence next month, and for everyone's time today. I think this was a great call, and I want to say thank you again. So.
Thank you for the invite. I really
Yes.
enjoyed meeting the ladies that were on the call and seeing the others again.
Good, wonderful. All right, ladies, if no one else has anything else, we'll see you next month, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Bye, ladies.
Sounds
Sonia,
good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye. Bye.
Sonia and Christine.